You know that 90s sort of, I don't know if you call it hip hop rap song, that Push It Real Good song?
Mhm.
Push It Real Good. I feel like every time you push the recording link, you kind of like sit back, like, yeah, I pushed it real good.
Yep, little salt and peppers here.
Is that salt and pepper?
It's gotta be salt and pepper.
Sure, it's not In Vogue or something.
I would bet my life it's salt and pepper.
You're probably right. That sounds about right. You looking it up now?
Yeah, because I feel like I gotta know. If I'm wrong on that, I'm questioning my whole upbringing. Yeah, salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper.
Salt and
Yeah.
pepper. There's no R, come on.
Do you know Salt and Peppa was one of the first cassette tapes I owned? As- I bought 3 cassette tapes at the garage sale next door when I was like in elementary school or
Okay.
middle school, and it was Salt and Peppa. Probably had that song on it. Ace of Base,
Ace of base, yeah.
and then a Weird Al Yankovic cassette tape.
So
Yeah,
I owned all of those,
nice.
although Weird Al would have been on CD.
Well, I think I'm pretty sure I had it on cassette.
No, I'm saying for me.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so I just looked that up. So I was right to be confident, but I would not have guessed what year that song came out.
Oh God, it's probably early 90s. 93?
1986.
No.
Yeah, so that was even pre us. I thought like I grew up with that song, but no, that was already by the time I was aware of that song, it was 10 years old.
That's wild. All right. Well,
Craziness.
we could get hung up on something like this for a while, Bracken. So let's choose to move on.
Well, I'm just gonna bow up on that old conversation by saying that being back in a high school now is the first time I've felt like significantly older since hernia surgery or knee surgery, one of the two.
Elaborate on that.
Well, I taught high school and I remember how old the students looked and felt, like just in dealing with them. They are they're just babies. They're so young.
Not some of those dang girls. They look like they're 25 the way
They
they're
look
done
like
up.
babies to me now.
Do they?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm, like, officially old enough now that high school kids look like babies to me,
Hmm. I mean, I could see it.
just
I
like
could
little
absolutely
kids.
see it. Children.
Yeah. No, and
They
part of it
technically are
was
children.
I graduated at 22, and special education in the state of Wisconsin allows students through 21.
Hmm.
So, when I was student teaching, I was the same age as some people I was teaching, which is a weird dynamic. So even when I left teaching 4 or 5 years later, I was still like many of my students were freshmen and sophomore, but they were still like 20 and 21-year-old students I was working with at 25. So like
Yeah.
that gap was obviously very narrow, but now, yeah, they
I
just
wonder
feel like
how
little kids.
I wonder how they see you.
Well, uh,
We should take a survey.
I've had a few ask me how old I am, and I'm a conundrum, right?
You are,
Because
you are.
I'm objectively fit looking and I'm also bald and I have white patches in my facial hair.
You are confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a youthful face, but a very old hair palette.
Well, yeah, because you're bald, of course, everybody
Mhm.
knows that, but your presence in person and your energy is very young. I would still say if I didn't know you, I would actually guess younger than you are.
Hmm.
That's what people guess for me generally, but I have hair.
Well, a few were surprised I am 38. They said, "Oh, I thought you were younger," and one guessed 50. Straight face guessed I was 50. And
I
then
think
my
that's
dad was
so
next to me. I
funny.
said, "Okay, if I," he said, "Are you 50?" I said, "Yeah." "How'd you know?" He goes, "That's a good guess. Like you're bald. That's like you're 50." "Okay, how old's my dad then?" He goes, 63. You're a terrible guesser. Thought my
That
dad
is
had me at
so
13.
satisfying for me. I would love to have been a fly in that room.
It was in the hallway in between class, but it was great. Yeah, so
Speaking of teaching kids, I had a GA position in grad school, graduate
mm,
assistantship, um and so I was doing a physiology lab with the undergrad students. It was my first year as a graduate student. I was 21. I just turned 21 in my senior year. I was younger, right? For my wait, is that right? 19? No, 22. And half the kids I was looking at, it was advanced physiology.
mm,
And at the time, like those kids were a year younger than me. And half of the girls in the classroom I was attracted to, right? Because they're my
right,
age. And like, but you have to be an authoritative figure. And like, I was like, I just learned that material last year. And now I'm
right.
supposed to teach you this. and like getting buy-in and getting like you could just tell like, and I looked young, I was scrawny coming off a distance running, I didn't have much of a presence. That was one of the more nerve-wracking times in my life, teaching material I wasn't entirely confident in
I
to
believe that.
people of my age that I would socialize with outside of the classroom. It was a big growing moment for me.
Yeah, I always felt for young professors. We had this woman come in. She's originally from Seoul. She came over from Korea here, got her doctorate from Kentucky or Kansas, one of the two, and then came and got her first professorship at Whitewater at 24 or 25. So,
So tough.
like, she's already a doctor at 24 or 25.
Mm-hmm.
And she probably has been the most like dominant intellectual force in every room she's ever been in. Like just
That
a
worked out.
prodigy. And Whitewater ate her alive. They hated her.
Why?
One, she was guest lecturing in the School of Education, which a decent amount were people returning for the special ed department later in life to get their degrees or to get like a new certification. And so she was so young and successful, and all the women in my class like despised her. She was this young, tiny Asian woman with like a very thick accent, and like the Midwest, whatever you want to call it, crowd just like rejected her. And I felt so terrible for her. She was brilliant.
Was she
And
good and
like,
approachable? And
yeah, she was delightful. A little shy, but like,
women got to stop hating on other women, Brakken. Women are the worst. They are the cattiest. Bring out the claws. I don't want to see you be successful. Jealousy leads the way more often than not. Women.
well, I'm not touching that. I
Well,
will.
listen, if it's going to happen that way, women have a harder time supporting other women than I feel men have a hard time supporting other men, at least from afar.
That could be a fair statement.
You might want to edit all that out. I might get some hate for that one.
To put it in context, in the graduating class of the special education department, I was one of 3 men. So the fact that it was primarily female-driven hate towards her was also a numbers game. But
okay.
The fact of the matter was, they drove her out. She quit after 1 year, and I was like, these
That's
people
too
have
bad.
no clue what they just like gave up on, because this should have been like a fantastic semester, and instead she was alone. She's miserable and alone in a foreign world, and just like not accepted. So anyway, I feel for all teachers, but young teachers have it real rough.
Yeah, reminds me of Senora Byroll in high school. It was her first year out of college, and she was teaching a bunch of young high school boys, and she's 22, and you know, kind of the same thing. It's like she couldn't get our real attention if she was the best teacher on earth at that age. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just given the circumstances. All right, so let's cut to it.
Yeah. Last week, we presented an Instagram coach's take on a bulletproof equation that solves everyone's needs for how much hill work do you need to be running in a week, depending on what your goal race is. I wouldn't say we debunked it, but we showed the flaws of a one-size-fits-all equation, even though we agreed with it for like, I don't know, a 40 to 60% of the population, maybe. That is a wild guess, but they had some merit. But since we kind of broke, we should fix today.
We made a little bit of a mess.
So we're going to clean it up. We are going to give not an equation, because we don't believe in that kind of thing, as much as we would love a blanket statement we could make for people to blindly follow. Instead, we're going to give our recommendations for how you should think about how much vert you should be running in a week for any type of runner.
Somebody messaged our account, and they reminded us that we've already had this conversation. Does that ring a bell? With a guest, and they were correct. It wasn't the exact equation, but we discussed this in detail with a certain guest we've had in the past.
We talked about the concept of feet per mile for sure being something that a lot of people use and I don't like.
Justin Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody said, you guys are already talking about something that somebody else had already come up with. Justin on your own podcast talked about it. Then I thought about it, and I was like, well, yes, we didn't dive in deeper than that, but I think we started talking about the concept of average feet per mile and how training
Yeah.
should reflect that, and why Justin was literally just going up and down his driveway, which was long and steep, but he would do driveway reps because that was the steepest, most accessible, quick
Mhm.
option he had.
Yeah. A few things about that. One, I love that someone listens that often and recalls enough to know that. That's
It's awesome.
fantastic. Two, we haven't talked to Justin in 2 years. So absolutely we should be rehashing topics. And
Yeah.
three, there are certain races where average feet per mile works. And oftentimes is the type of race Justin does. Very steep, very technical races.
Yeah. Yeah. His sort of like Ultra 101, like things to think about episode with him was one of the better episodes, maybe the best Ultra
Yeah.
episode we've ever done. Some of the things he discussed and the nuances and intricacies of how to, especially the backyard format. Very good listen. If you have new listeners that haven't listened to the last Justin Hamilton interview, probably about 2 years ago, last one.
Yeah, I would say so. Anyways, definitely that is worth a re-listen if you're an ultra runner or if you have
Yep.
an ultra coming up.
So we made a mess, kind of muddied the waters, tried to make sense of the Vert formula that we talked about previous episode. If you're not familiar with it, go back and listen. It's still probably worth a listen, but we're going to try to make more sense. Say that aside, what do we believe you need
Yes.
for Vert training when Vert is involved in your races?
All right, I'll kick off if you don't mind.
Not at all.
I made a statement in response to the volume equation they used, and I'm going to start with that. I believe that the bigger volume you run as an athlete, the smaller percentage of your volume needs to be vert. And I believe that the less mileage or volume you run, the greater percentage of that needs to be up or downhill. I do not think we can have a standard equation. I think it needs to skew one way or the other. If you only run 20 miles per week and you're preparing for a 50K with vert, almost all of it's going to have to be up or downhill. If you run 100 miles per week, you may be able to get away with the same amount of vert as someone running 20 or 40 miles per week.
Do you care to, I don't know, dissect that further, or is it as simple as that in your mind?
Well, I believe that engine is engine to a point, and then it needs to be paired with race-specific demands. And huge, big, medium, large to medium volume runners build a very big engine. And so a bigger engine can usually handle other demands better, and it adapts quicker to specific skill work. And I think hill work is 50% skill and 50% engine. I think downhill is more skill than engine and uphill is more engine than skill, but it balances out. 50-50 maybe isn't the right thing, but the less you run, the more your engine needs to be race specific. And so could you get by on that 50K we use with 5,000 feet of vert, or go to the East or West Coast like we talked about, half marathon with 5,000 feet of vert? Could you get by on 20 to 30 miles per week? Yeah, you could. But they would have to be so specifically dialed into the terrain you're about to be running. Whereas take like a Tyler German, someone we've talked to in the past that can run big volume, and give him 1 to 2 big hill workouts per week, and he can go either direction to either one of those races and do very well with it.
Yeah, I would go as far as saying, let's just use two sort of extremes. If you take 100-mile-a-week athlete, which there's not many out there, especially in our listener base, I would imagine, but maybe 20% of your volume should be on race specific terrain. However, if you were a 30-mile-a-week athlete like you outlined, maybe 80% of your volume needs to be. And even that 30-mile-a-week person with 80% of their work being on race specific terrain is still actually doing less than the 100-mile-a-week athlete doing 20% of their volume. So I don't think that formula spreads out well. I agree with you about the foot to mile ratio. And that's exactly why. Because at some point, like, you're kind of beating a dead horse with overkill, and then you're dealing with the recovery cycles of, let's call it, descending potentially at high volume. I mean, anyways, so I'm just validating what you're saying. I agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your agreement.
I got you. So where do we go from here? I think is the next question is, all right, so you're somewhere between 30 and 60 miles a week. You got some vert trail races on your calendar.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do? How do I break my week down? Where does my priorities lie? And how do I make training decisions? That's what we're trying to assess out today.
Yeah. Well, right away, I would look at what type of vert am I going to encounter most often on race day. Now, there are ultras with 5,000 feet of vert, and 2,000 of them come on a single climb, and all the rest are little 200 to 400 foot climbs. That's not as common, but that exists. And if that's up early in your race, your training is going to look different than if it's the last thing you do in the race, or if it's split between 10 500-foot climbs. So deciding like, what is the profile of the course I'm running? What are the actual demands of the hills? That's always step one. And then I always sort hills into low, medium, and high steepness, and deciding where and how much of each one of these do I need for any given race. So I know that's not a specific yet, but I think it's important that people know where to begin with even thinking about how do I go about designing what type of vert to get.
Well, I was going to play cleanup with your assessment of course profile by adding on that the grade matters as much as anything. And then you went and
Got
ahead
it.
and clean, you got it already before I could say it. I can tell you that as important as, okay, how long will I be climbing and or descending at one shot within the race? If this is a 45-minute climb for me and I'm only going to my 200-foot ski hill that takes me 3 minutes to run up, I am not prepared for a 45-minute opening climb, right?
Right.
At the same time, I remember going to Tahoe my first year. And Tahoe, I mean, there's a lot of douche grade in Tahoe, and there's also some steep stuff. But point being, I didn't have an incline trainer yet, and so I was maxing her out at 15% at the gym, and I was doing my hill work at 15%, and thinking I'm getting ready for a mountain race. And I got a mile into that first climb. I said, "This ain't 15%. I am literally shot in places already 15 minutes into this race that I have never felt once on that treadmill."
Yeah.
And I rendered myself useless. By the time I was a half an hour in, I was already underwater because the musculature recruited at different grades, even from 15 to 25 grade, they might as well almost be like completely different biomechanics. And so I
Different
found out
strides. Yeah.
completely different in the way it recruits and puts demand on your lower body musculature. My lower back, I never felt my lower back scream at me like I did once I started running up 30% grade in Tahoe that day. I'm like,
Yeah.
where is this coming from? And so point being is like grade matters as much as anything. And so being like hypercritical of what grades you'll encounter as well. Very
Yeah.
important.
And this is where that equation starts to break down a little bit, is that unless there's a secondary rule that is, and blank percent of that running must be at intended grade, then if you wanted, let's say you had to do, like we talked about, 16,000 feet of vert per week, according to that equation. Well, I don't care what that number is for this example. The point is, you can get that a lot of different ways. So today, or I talked about, I've been doing 15 to 20% hiking or sometimes jogging before and after my strength sessions. So a lot of days I'll get 1,000, 2,000 feet of vert on that day. Today I did a warm up, and then I did a 650-foot warm up at 20%. And then I did 15% incline, 8 by 3 minutes. And then I did another 650-foot finisher. The 8 by 3 minutes at 15% did not feel like I was climbing. It felt like I was running uphill. The 20% hiking felt way more like I was climbing up a mountain, but there was no cardio, real like anaerobic component to it. It wasn't hard. It was just trudging. So my point is, if I were to go big on that and say, well, I can get 1,000 feet per hour on that 20% incline hiking, no problem. I just have to do that twice a day and I've got my vert. But if I did the 15% fast, I could get that done. I got 20, I don't know, right around 2,000 feet of vert or whatever throughout the workout. I can get that done in under an hour or combined with some warm up, cool down, whatever. But like the pace per hour, I can get done much quicker at a lower incline running harder.
Mm-hmm.
But it also didn't feel like I was engaging, like you talked about, parts of my hamstring, calves, or hips that are going to burn going steep up a mountain. But I could still hit my vert that way. So I have two different ways of hitting the vert, and neither one really has me ready to race. One has me ready for the incline, but not the intensity or the stride. And one has me ready for the intensity, but not the incline or stride.
I could not agree more with that. In fact, I've just been scratching like the bit about I've been working at 6% a little bit on my treadmill recently. Like I feel like it's a flatland stride, but it
Yep.
requires just a little more power. Since I've been racing a lot on the roads, or that's been my focus, I'm playing with it and it's astronomically effective. I did a 40 to 45 minute, let's call it threshold. I got my heart rate about 166 to 169. I just held it there. For me, that was a pretty big session, but it was approachable. I got 23 or something 100 feet of vert. Okay. And I can tell you, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, I can fluff my vert stats at the week. It's going to be on my Strava, and I am 0% prepared for a race with vert by
Yeah.
doing that, by 6% work. And that's like a shining example. I looked, I was like 2,300 feet. Like I was running at 6%. Now I could take the treadmill, put it to 30%, get 2,300 feet of vert at, let's call a threshold-ish effort. That'd take me shorter amount of time. Maybe I get it in a half hour or so. And now I'm prepared. And on
Yeah.
Strava, it's the exact same vert
Yeah.
marker. There couldn't be more glaringly obvious discrepancy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. So when I first got my incline trainer, I could not handle on my calves and Achilles to go much above 20%. But I did this same thing I'm doing now. I did a lot of 1,000-foot in the morning, 1,000-foot at night. So I had a lot of weeks between, I don't know, 10 and 15,000 feet of vert all winter long that really say I'm stacking up mountain running. But I went out to, where would that have been, a kickoff that year? Temecula out in California.
What year are you talking?
I don't even remember, in the teens.
Before I think I knew
Yeah,
you
and
existed. Yeah.
I ran something like at a Atlas race or something like that. That's where it kicked off. I ran something like 9th or 11th place. Struggle busing on all the climbs because I just didn't have it. And then I get done with the climbs and it was hard for me to get back to my regular stride. Fast forward to Colorado, and now I'm doing almost all my quality work other than 1 day per week. Then that was a day I did a split session. I would do intervals flat, 2/3 of a workout, and then I'd go over and run vert somewhere for the last third of the workout. All of the other work I did was uphill or downhill, all of it. And nothing that I ran was less than 15% incline, and a lot of it was between 20 and 40. And I did a lot on the Manitou incline. And I get to the season opener in Montana. And you know what really hurt? Running uphill at race pace.
Oh, it's going to hurt no matter what.
Really hurt. And I was going up these things thinking, I know how fit I am. I know how advanced my metrics have gotten versus how they started on all my hill work, all these intervals I'm doing. And I'm still struggle busing to stay within range of getting dropped on people on these climbs. And 30 minutes in, with my quads burning and my calves burning, I decided, like, well, I just got to try another surge here. And I could. And then I got to the flats. I'm like, well, I'm going to push this flat. And I could. And then there's a downhill. It's like, well, I better attack this downhill. And I could. And then we went back uphill. And it's like, oh, my quads are killing me. But they just kept working. And what I realized after that race was done is that I had options still in the race, because even though hills didn't really get any easier, they also didn't deplete me. The hills felt almost the same and maybe worse because I was probably working them harder. But then at the top, I could get back to work. And the difference there was no difference in vert per week. I was still getting between 10 and 15,000 feet per week. But all of it was as hard or worse than the terrain I was about to race. And now, so like 15,000 feet, 15,000 feet, identical stats on paper. In one of them, I was just getting dropped all race. And the other one, I just kept finding ways to work harder. Only difference was race terrain.
And you would say that Montana was probably, let's call, foot per mile less steep than the terrain you were training on.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. There were a few that were similar, but no, it wasn't terribly steep. But I was at that or above always rather than below, still getting the vert.
Yeah, and I think as a general rule of thumb, when in doubt, go steeper kind of sort of rule.
For trail running, yes.
For trail running, correct. Although I will say, learning from that Tahoe experience I talked to you about, where I had a 15% treadmill and then went to Tahoe and was like, yeah, this is not it. Well, I got my incline trainer, if you recall, that winter, and We had been working together, becoming friends at that point. Anyways, I lived at 30%. Lived at even 40 because Big Bear was coming up. Remember Big Bear? You never raced at Big Bear, I don't think.
I never got Big Bear.
So, anyways, and I ended up sixth there that first time crack,
Yep.
and that was a huge performance for me at altitude on that terrain. I
Yep.
mean, I committed. However, at one point in the race, on top, and anybody who's raced Big Bear knows, there's this douche grade 6 to 10% that goes for like you think you're done climbing, but you got a couple miles of it.
Yeah.
I
It was like
spent
5K one year.
it was terrible. I spent no time training there at that grade. I was just like steep, 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 and it paid off. I had a great race. But I remember Chris Brown going by me at 6 or 8 or 10%. Like I might as well have been standing still. He
Mhm.
looked like he was on flat ground. And suddenly I realized, aha, I went so far the other way that I don't have access to this now,
Yep.
which was really bizarre to feel. So it can work both ways. And even though I still stay steeper the better if you're going to err on the side of caution, like you want to have all the arrows in your quiver because I got smoked there.
Yeah.
Felt pathetic.
So I think you could describe it in two ways, the type of vert you need to be running. The first is that it needs to be within 5 to, for some people, 10% of your intended race incline. I would want it closer to 5. Like if I'm doing a race that's going to have a lot of 20% incline and the best I can get is 15, I'm going to do all right. I'm going to be pretty darn prepared. If I'm doing 15 and I have to race 25 or 30, I'm going to be found lacking. If I have a race with 10% grade and I run a lot of 5 to 7, I'm going to be fine. May not be primed, but I'll be fine. And up and down is the same thing. If I spend a lot of time on my incline trainer at 20 and my race tops out at 15, I'm still going to be fine. If I
Mm-hmm.
spend all my time at 30 and it tops out at 15, I'm going to be found lacking. So I want to be within 5% incline or 5% of the incline I'm going to run as much as possible. Some people have a wider range and they can go up to 10, but that's where I would start. That'd be what my first rule of how do you choose which hills to run.
Yeah, I do feel like there's also like this. We don't talk about it really in this regard, but like the body weight to climbing ratio thing. Like if you're like a light on foot athlete, you're a lighter male or female doesn't really matter. I feel like your range broadens, like your
Yep.
ability to get away with things. However, if you're a Clydesdale or an Athena or me, 170 pounds trying to run up a mountain, I feel like it makes a big difference to be very much more dialed than if I'm a 130-pound guy. I can sort of skirt the edges better, but I think the heavier you are, the more exact musculature specific you need to be at those grades.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I know not all courses do this. Like the course maps, if they come out, like Spartan is a good job of this. Average slope, max grade, it'll show you on the map, and their ballpark. I know local trail races you don't have that luxury, but a lot of times you can look that up or look at people's Stravas and
Yeah.
from races past and actually find like, okay, I have to see 45% grade at some point. And the average slope is 21. Okay, here's my starting point at least.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what you do. The second way to look at it is that everyone has a mechanical threshold with uphill running, and it's different for everybody. I talked about this when I talked about people running the maximum versus minimum runnable inclines. Like at some point you're running uphill if you're on a treadmill or a road that like gradually ramps up in steepness, and you're running and you're running and you're running. You're like, I'm running, it's flat. I'm running, it's uphill. I'm running, it's uphill. Suddenly, boom, my stride changes. That point right there, you need to be on the side of your race. So I could be at, let's say, typically on the treadmill for me, that's around 10 to 12%. 10% right now feels flatter than it feels steep. And somewhere between 12 and 15, I'm running with a different form. Let's say it's 14% for me. If I run at 13% that entire time in my training, all my quality work, I am going to be found lacking on course, even though I'm only 1% off. But it's that difference between I'm running my uphill running stride and I am now climbing uphill. There's a different form that goes to it. And that's when you talk about, I've never felt this strain on my lower back or my rear chain before. It's because it is now a different angle on your body and you're running differently and you're using everything differently. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important to be on the race side of that inflection point of stride change. So even though that 5% rule is cool, it's not if it doesn't get you past that point. And you need to find the hills. Like I have a few ski hills near me, and some of them I can jog up, and others I can jog up differently. Like I feel like I'm kind of running form jogging, and the other one I am uphill climbing jogging. I need to be on that one for steep races, and I need to be on the other one for less steep races.
I'll let you take this one because I don't know how many people are in touch with like, oh, I'm a running stride now, but now I'm a climbing stride. Like I think people just their body automatically does things, right? And I don't
Right.
think as many are as in tune as you are. So give me some examples of like what that would feel like
Yeah.
for you.
Well, for me, it's for sure how my feet hit the ground. You are
Like what
hitting the
part of your
ground.
foot?
What'd you say?
What part of your foot is contacting the ground?
So like it doesn't matter even. It's just how. Like if I run 9 minute per mile pace, I'm hitting rear midfoot and rolling off. And if I run 4 minute per mile, I'm hitting up near my forefoot and getting off the ground. At 30%, I'm up near my forefoot, but I'm not getting off the ground. I'm digging in, I'm pulling down, and I'm not really jumping off the ground. I'm lifting my next foot up onto the terrain. And that's the difference in stride. Like at one, you're running and using a running form where your foot hits the ground, and then it pops off the ground and cycles up underneath you. And then at some point, you're pulling yourself up the hill. You're not popping off the ground. Like that is one big key there. Your arms too. At some point on the uphill, your arms just aren't really doing what they were doing a few seconds ago. Your hips, running, oftentimes they're just stabilizing. At a certain point uphill, they're like taking a tension. Again, it's like a pulling uphill feeling versus pushing off the ground. But as hard as it is for me to describe it, it's very easy to feel if you can get
Mhm.
on a treadmill to begin and just start raising it up 1% at a time. You just raise it up, raise it up, raise it up, and at some point you go, "Yep, that was it. I'm running
Mhm.
weird or different now."
Yeah, at some point the propulsion factor disappears.
Gone.
You're not propelling yourself through space anymore. You're almost I mean, all running is a controlled fall, but uphill running almost unless you're taking large steps to get around boulders and such is really the essence of a
Yeah.
controlled fall. Leaning into the terrain and just putting your foot in front of you enough that you don't fall on your face, right?
Right.
Um, all right, so I think we need to break this down for the people listening. Saying, all right, so we're going to say this formula is hogwash for most of you. You don't need as much vert as this formula we previously discussed is saying. So what do I do? Right? These are people
Mhm.
asking themselves listening to this. So I have a starting point for this
Okay.
that I pretty much I'm going to say I firmly believe in this because it's a formula I use with athletes I work with, and it's a formula that has worked well for me. And just as a reminder, I went on a 10-mile run yesterday, and I got 100 or 97 feet of vert from my house running a loop. Right, like it is flat here, so I have to go very far out of my way, either on the
Mhm.
treadmill or on real terrain, to get vert. And as many people, if you don't live in the mountains, like, yeah, I can get to the local trails or the ski hill or whatever, but it's an hour from home and I can't do that in the middle of the week when I have life and a job and family and all of that. I can commit to the weekend, let's say, but like I need to be in a vacuum during the week. I think that's a common scenario. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, very much so.
I mean, yeah, I got a guy living in Florida running Killington this weekend. Like, tell me what you're going to do, right?
Mhm.
So, point being is I think it is a twice a week stimulus with purpose, climbing both of those stimulus with a once a week emphasis on the downhill or purpose on the downhill as well. So,
Yes.
what I'm getting at is an aggressive, vert focused day of quality once per week. And that's fine if it's done in a vacuum on the treadmill. And then offsetting that with a vert focused day on the weekends in your long run, where there could be quality mixed in, but for sure we're ensuring that we're going downhill with purpose at some point. You could rejig it if you have one of those schedules where maybe you are doing a shoots and ladders workout. You're going up down with purpose on a midweek quality session. And then maybe on your long run, you jig it and you get an hour in going up, and then you get outside and run flat for the remainder or something like that. But the point being is touch it twice, and when you touch it, they're big. and they're at race specific grade, at race specific time durations. I very much believe in uphill threshold work. Like I believe in it through and through. Get the heart rate up, keep it there, and just sit in it at the different grades. And so I guess just blanket statement without details, that is where I would start any athlete in that situation.
Yeah, I think that almost everyone can get by on 2 purposeful uphill runs, 1 purposeful downhill run per week. And then what you do in between, and those days, at least one of them must be big. Like we're
Correct.
talking, you're over an hour of purposeful work on one of those days, and you're between 40 and 60 minutes on the other. One would ideally be your long run, but just done on that type of terrain, talking 90 minutes plus. But what happens from there then, I think, is determined by your running volume. If you are a low mileage runner, then I think more of your in-between should be uphill hiking. If you are a low volume runner, there's also a really good chance that you are a low running competitor, meaning when you're in the mountains or doing these big races, you're going to hike a lot of the course. At which point, hiking and training is not only aerobic, but it's also race specific. So you get to double dip by having it be engine building and be specific to the stride you're going to use on race day. If you're running a 50 miler on less than 50 miles per week volume, power hiking is double dipping, and you should be doing that.
Explain. So, like, are you saying just so I can break this down a little bit further? And I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever. Monday would be a recovery run, and I go out for an hour. Well, now because I know I'm going to be power hiking a good bit out there, I am now recovery power hiking on Mondays before my Tuesday quality. For example, is that what you're outlining in a sense at times?
Yeah, that would be one good way of doing that. Whereas for, let's say if you're going to go run a 50 miler with, let's call it 10,000 feet of vert, you're going to run a lot of that course. You're going to hike as well, but I don't think power hiking at 15% incline is going to give you good race stimulus. It'll get you, like, you can get your heart rate wherever you want at 15% walking. At the very least, you can get it to aerobic threshold. So you're going to be fine. Like, it'll build some engine for you, but it's not really race engine.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be running that 50 miles with 10,000 feet of vert in like 20 hours, power hiking at 15% incline is pretty darn race specific. So you should be doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I've never purposely power hiked in training other than to manage overuse injuries. Stress reaction type injuries, but there's a huge place for probably the largest sector of ultra athletes. Wouldn't you say?
So I think, I do agree. So I do think everyone should be getting purposeful work. And I think the point of those quality sessions is to get as much vert as you can handle and sustain and do again the next week. And then that's either enough for you or it's not. And you either add in more or you don't. But I think if you can get 2 in, you're pretty set for being able to survive the race. And I believe in the 2/3 to 3/4 rule, depending on the athlete. What you can do in training, you can do another 33 to or 25 to 30% on race day. Mm-hmm. So if you have a 10,000 foot vert day planned for race day, you got to be able to get to 6,000 to 7,000 feet in any given big training weekend. Not every weekend, but you've got to be able to do it to know you can do 25 to 33% more on race day. Like if you are preparing for a 50K, I don't think you have to prove that you can go past 20 miles in training. Because if you can get to 20, you can get to 30 on race day. Now, if you are trying to maximize that race and compete for the win, you might have to rethink that. But if you're just looking to survive and do pretty well, like 2/3 is enough. 3/4 is enough. Somewhere in there is enough. So a 20,000 foot vert race, if you can get to 15, if you can get 12 to 15 in a day and survive that, do that every couple of weeks, like you're going to be okay. So I don't think you need to necessarily try to hit it every week.
Yeah. Yeah, I very much agree with that. I think that's probably just about right. I mean, you break that down, be like, okay, it's a 50K with 6,000 feet of up and down. Well, if I run a 20-mile long run with 4,000 feet of up and down, I'm getting the idea. My body's spent 3+ hours going up and down similar grades at some point. Also, the return on investment and recovery hammer swing back doesn't become worth it either. So I like that third rule. I think is pretty good. You know how you often just outlining this. So for me, I still feel my best if I keep some flat running with quality in there.
Yep.
Do you agree? Is that the same for you?
Always.
Yeah, and so even if I have a mountain focus race, and I do maybe people don't think of me that way, but I do open up my year last few years with 2 trail races, which have enough vert in them generally, and
Mhm.
so I do get specific here, and I find a formula is like the A week and B week that you like to talk about
Mhm.
with this, and so a good way, like if I had to jump into a 5K or a half marathon, I have the efficiency there because I'm not letting go of the flat arrow in my quiver, but my focus is still vert. So like a week would be like vert quality on a Tuesday and a vert long run on a Saturday. And then B week would be flat quality on a Tuesday, but then a midweek long run that has vert, and then also a long run that has vert following it up.
Yeah.
So every 2 weeks, you're getting a flat biomechanical efficiency stride stimulus, which I just find invigorating. You really do lose touch. Like when I was all in on some of these mountain races, like, yeah, I lost touch with my efficiency, but I was all in.
Mhm.
So I like the A week, B week. You're still touching vert twice a week, no matter what, except every other week you give yourself that dose of efficiency flat work, which can pay off on downhills. It can still be beneficial on the flat sections, of course. You're not only going up and downhill in these trail races ever. Even in the
Yep.
steepest of races, there's flat sections that you want to be available for. So, like, point being is don't let that go completely either. So I would, best case scenario, pick an A week and a B week.
Yeah. And I like that style. And whether you choose that style or keep it present every week, I believe that even if you're not doing fully flat, if it's just your lowest incline work, your fastest, most intense work should be your flattest work as an ultra runner.
Mhm.
So you do the least of it and you do it the hardest. I think you save your threshold work as an ultra runner for more uphill, at the very least 10% probably for an ultra runner. And then your steepest work is your probably most moderate work, unless it's a day where you're like, I'm just going to really burn out on these type of inclines in order to not burn out as much on race day, make it more accessible. But I think your hardest work is your lowest work, and your grindiest work is your mid and upper work.
Yeah, very much agree. Like almost like for example, the classic, like some of these ultra guys are like every Tuesday they're still on the track doing 400s and they're
Yep.
taking a good bit of rest and they're not looking at their heart rate. They're running hard and fast to
5K
make sure.
pace or faster.
Yeah. And they're
Yep.
just keeping it available. And then you want to get dialed in on threshold and you want to get dialed in on just sustained output, which really, if you're going to master the mountains, it's just like get there and sit in it, right? And
Yep.
be able to, we talk about this a lot on the, not a lot, but we talk about it on the bike. Like a big problem people have on the bike often is that your legs fail you before you can keep your heart rate high enough for long. But at some point, it's the legs that fail you, and you just can't get the cardiac like accessibility.
Mhm.
And there's a version of that for climbing. There's a whole sector of people I've worked with, and probably you too, that say I actually can't get my heart rate as high climbing. And that just tells you one thing. If you're one of those people who struggle to get your heart rate up and keep it there climbing, guess what? You're the exact person who needs more of the sustained climbing so that you can build up your resistance to that specific muscle fatigue.
Yep.
Me, on the other hand, now that I've been doing this for a while, my heart rate gets higher and sits there higher on incline than flat. But the first couple of years I did this, I would tip over, my legs would go, and then I couldn't keep my heart rate up because I was bankrupt.
Yeah.
And so think about that too. If you're one of those people who find your legs go on you before anything, if you're climbing, you're the one who needs to double down on that and just sit in it, like Brakken's talking about, the longer grindy stuff, build up the musculature endurance to that movement.
I agree. I think that if you are going to start a workout at or above intended goal incline, you work at that at the intended incline and in effort as long as you can. But if you're burning out muscularly, then you switch down to a lower incline in the second half and finish out for time. Because once you're depleted, a lower incline is still going to recruit the muscle fibers of a higher incline. So like if I'm trying to do 30% incline work right now, if I was going to go get ready for an ultra, I cannot spend 60 minutes there. Maybe I got 20 good minutes of me, and then I'm going to just not have the power or the muscle endurance to keep doing that. Now I can drop it down to 15 to 20% in like gray zone dawdle there. And I'm getting race specific work now because I'm recruiting in a compromised way. Now that matters. So you don't lead with that, but you can tack that on at the end. And now it's not as much of like junk vert, so to speak.
I don't know if there is junk vert. I also don't think there's
I
junk.
do.
And then, well, I mean, power hiking at douche grade is pointless,
Right.
for example. So I guess you're right. But
6%
also,
intervals get you 1,000 feet over the course of the workout, and it has you not ready for mountains one bit.
100%. I also do once in a while, like how I get comments on it, but like recovery vert on the treadmill. I'm like, this isn't really anything like that if I'm at 15%. Right? You always feel like it makes you work a little harder than you should. But like the case of, let's say you're one of those, like when I first got my incline trainer, for example, or I'm running up mountains on a trip I take to get ready for my race, even though I don't normally have access to that terrain. Like if you're the person who climbs at 30% and suddenly your calves are burning and your Achilles is so tight that you just like you have to hop off the treadmill and shake out the legs or whatever. Perfect case to like, no, drop the incline
Yeah.
5% and hit it differently, and suddenly that opens back up to you. But I would just say like that failure structurally is like a really big sign about the fact like that's going to limit you in the race itself. And I don't
Yeah.
know about you, I breathe hard in these mountain races when we go climb thousands of feet at one shot before descending, but it's almost still always musculature
Muscular.
on me. You
Yeah.
too?
Yeah, for sure.
Like my legs are gone. Like it doesn't matter. I can't. They're not available to me anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the reverse or the inverse, the downhill. I believe
Yep.
the same thing about volume. The more downhill you run, the less of it has to be intense and intentionally hard. The less of it you run, the more you have to rip the downhills to be prepared for more vert on race day. The caveat to that is that that's a recipe for injury if you're not structurally sound. And this is where all the weight room work in the off season comes in. But if we go back to our half marathon with 4 to 5,000 feet of vert, if you're running 20,000 feet per week, you maybe have to rip 1,000 of those.
Mm-hmm.
If you're running 20 miles per week, probably every time you run downhill, you should be running significantly faster than anything you're ever going to use on race day in order to have the resistance to impact through that eccentric damage built up that's going to survive the actual race. If you can't get to that 60% rule, that 2/3, that 3/4 with downhill, then a higher percentage has to be hard.
I mean, that's exclusively what you've had to do living where you live and what I've had to
Yeah.
do. You have access to a 150-foot hill, but you're going to descend 2,000 feet in a row in a race. Yeah, you climb up that hill easy to moderate. And when you turn down, you might as well look like a 400-meter sprinter on the track because you just want impact and you
Yep.
rip. And then at least on race day, the damage isn't so damaging and it feels more approachable. But I mean, my Vert midweek long runs over the years when would go to the ski hill, slog up it, rip down, slog up it, rip down. And getting into the race, it actually was quite effective to do that. I don't know about you, but like the only way to do it is to swing harder than you're going to descend on the race day. And it does work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're thinking about just bulletproofing yourself, if you're trying to take, let's say you just want to toughen up your core. Let's say you're going to get in a fight and you know you're going to get hit in the stomach sometimes. You can either have 1,000 reps of getting hit light to moderate and just build up like that resistance, or you can say I'm only going to get hit like 5 times per week, but they're going to be big shots. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of how the downhill is. You got to choose. You can't take 5,000 big shots a week. But you can take 5 really big shots, or you can take 1,000 little medium shots. The downhill is the same way. You're going to build up your tolerance with little pitter patter shots doing 10,000 feet of vert downhill per week. In Colorado, when I was running 10 to 15,000 feet of vert, I was also descending 10 to 15,000 because all of mine was done in the mountains. I didn't rip except on quality days, and I didn't rip on half those quality days
Mm-hmm.
because my regular run got 1,000 feet of like moderately okay descending. And that just builds you up over time. Cannot get away with that in the Midwest. You have to rip.
Yeah.
But ripping hurts. It's physically uncomfortable, it's structurally uncomfortable, and it's mentally uncomfortable, and it can also hurt you. So that's the hardest part of all this.
The most sore I've been from a downhill session was actually after being with you.
Oh, yeah?
I was 2 weeks out from a 50K on the Superior hiking trail, and I wanted to do my last big climb descent workout. And you and I went up the ski hill, and we went down the concrete road that went down into the valley,
Yep.
and then we rinsed and repeated that. And
Foolishly hard. like 3 something per mile pace.
We were running like 3:30 pace down the hill. I mean,
Really, and it was like what, 700-meter road or something?
It's long, yeah.
At least.
It's probably 600 maybe,
Okay.
but nonetheless. Point being is if you feel like you have the skill of the technical trail running in your run acumen, like I feel like I have that. Brakken is a fantastic technical downhill runner. I think one of the biggest hacks that you can create is find a steep cement or concrete hill, Jack Bauer. Find a concrete hill and use that because it is so microdose it. Maybe every other week, right? Not like I'm going out every other day.
It could be every
But
third week.
I'll tell you what, those soft northern Minnesota trails, even though they were steep in the downhill, my gosh, was I bulletproof because I had adapted and responded to the concrete descending. And so, point being, I think it's a hack for us Midwesterners or those that don't have big hills. Great, we'll go to your local parking garage, and barring there's not traffic, rip down that thing. I think you can overtrain the impact from the type of terrain you're running on as well, and concrete is a very valuable asset if you have access to it going downhill. If you're trying to hack job and cheat the system,
Yes.
very
and
effective.
You must earn that by doing
Correct.
off-season weight work. Target your hips really, really well.
Yes.
Lower back, lower quads, calves, all that. And then you have to build into it. Like I used to run these reps on this concrete pavement, Jack Bauer hill in Lake Geneva. In week 1, I got like 3 reps of a 100-meter hill, and I called it. That was it. I was already taking a beating, and that is a recipe for a real injury. You cannot jump into that the way you can jump into uphill running, but you can progress it very quickly as well.
Every 10 to 14 days to start, maybe 3 stim, 2-3 a month. And then once you've proven you can, your shins too take a beating.
Yes.
Bottoms of your feet. Especially if you try running, racing each other like Brakken and I did, like a couple of idiots.
And we were in the biggest trail shoes we could find. We were in Speed Goats and Mafates that day, and I was still just beat to shreds for like probably 11 days.
No, it hit me. Mine came around, just my hamstrings were messed up, which is, you got to really be running hard downhill to mess up the hammies for like 7 days, hips. All right. So we are at time today. So we are going to have to bow tie this thing. Why don't you give them the summation of what they should do, and let's sign off.
All right. From the last episode, take the fact that you need to be able to handle race day, but maybe once per month. From this one, take that you need to be able to do 2/3 to 3/4 of race day on any given week's workout. And if you're running less volume, you need way more vert and way more intensity in your downhills. And if you're running more volume, you just need some specificity in some uphills and downhills to pair your skill to this massive engine you already have.
Perfect. I don't have anything to add to that.
That is the nicest thing to say to me.
Nothing. Just do your course recon, check out what grades you're going to be running up and down and the duration of climbs that you will be exposed to, and emulate in those big sessions each week when you choose to do them. I think you're going to be set.
Here we go. We did it.